Just 2 weeks away from Election Day, more than 31 million Americans have already cast their votes, including nearly 900,000 in Massachusetts.
Let's see how things are going in that state. Let's bring in the Secretary of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, William Galvin. So thank you so much for being with us. And your Attorney General there in the state actually had to put out an advisory to voters, reminding them that intimidation at the poll is illegal. Did that after, of course, the president suggested he wanted to send people out to watch polls. And also the GOP leader in your state has now asked for people to come out to be poll watchers. Are you concerned about any voter intimidation? And have you seen any of that just yet?
No, I'm not really. We have a state law that requires a police officer present at every polling location, and I think that certainly guarantees order. We will not tolerate anyone who interferes with the rights of voters. Elections are about voters. They're no longer about candidates. They're no longer about parties. It's about the voters. We have a law in Massachusetts that says all campaigning has to cease 150 feet away from a polling location. We're not going to tolerate anybody interfering, interrupting. They have the right to observe, but it's a quiet observation. It's not going to be anything that interferes with the rights of the voter.
Secretary, President Trump continues to make unsubstantiated claims that mail-in voting leads to widespread election fraud. I know you have been the chief officer there of elections in the state of Massachusetts for the past 25 years. Have you found evidence that mail-in voting leads to fraud in any way?
Absolutely not. And I'm so delighted to see the millions of Americans throughout our country who are coming out to prove that point. They point out the deceitfulness of a statement every single day that they come out and vote. The integrity of the electoral process is really what our country is founded upon. And he has insinuated and implied that it's fake, it's false. You know, I've dealt with many election administrators, both Democrats and Republicans throughout the country, and they're mostly, or in fact all, to my experience, honest people looking for an accurate count, fair people. And to suggest that somehow the process is tainted or there's some sort of a fraud or conspiracy, the only fraud in these statements are his statements. And I'm delighted to see millions of Americans are proving the integrity of the electoral process is there, alive and well, and very critical at this time in our country.
And yours is one of the states folks can actually, I believe, have their vote postmarked by Election Day. It can still be counted if it shows up in 3 days. And also, people can register to vote fairly late in the process as well. Tell me what that does, though. I mean, that's good to have the options, but are you concerned at all about procrastinators? They know they have more time. And what happens to you guys in the voting, if the vote count, if you don't get a lot of the ballots until late?
Well, we are very anxious to make sure people vote early if they can. If they know what they want to do, we'd prefer that they vote early, whether that's early in person or early by mail. Our law allows the opportunity for people who have it postmarked by the 3rd of November, as long as it's received within 3 days, the 6th of November, if it's domestically mailed, and in fact longer if it's mailed internationally. The idea is we want to make sure every legitimately cast ballot is counted. But I don't believe it undermines the integrity of the process. We know what the rules are. We hope people will vote early, but some people can't. They have issues. Some people may not have had the opportunity to register to vote. Our voter registration will last until the 24th. We certainly think it's important that the rights of people to vote are protected. Our system, we think, and we proved this in our recently held primary, where we had extensive early voting by mail, works. And it works because we have many checks in place. We have a central voter registry that protects the integrity of the system. And we are committed to making sure the rights of voters are protected. And we think most voters are honest people, too. And they just want to get their vote counted, and that's what we're about doing.
Secretary, we have 2 weeks until Election Day, and there are still quite a few people who are on the fence about voting, whether it's because we're in the middle of a pandemic or there are concerns about the safety of their vote. What would you say to those maybe voters right now?
Well, I think they should consider all the options that might be available. I know they vary in different states, but if they have the opportunity to vote early in person, some people I've talked to feel comfortable that way because they're actually passing their ballot into the local election officials. They don't have to rely upon the mails. If they don't feel that way, I think there's enough time right now to mail it, to make sure it gets in. We know there's been issues with the Postal Service, but we also know that there's a lot of scrutiny. And once again, my own experience with most local postal officials are that they want to do a good job. They understand the importance of this process. So I think that's there. And lastly, and I heard one of your earlier interviews, There will be safety at the polling places. Here in Massachusetts, we spend a lot of money making sure there'll be PPE, plexiglass, sanitized situations. I listened carefully to what was said regarding the process and making sure there's ventilation. We're looking for larger and larger spaces. It will be safe to vote on Election Day. We're going to make sure of it. Obviously, it'd be wisest to think of times that would be less populated, but it will be personally okay to come out on Election Day unless you have a very serious underlying condition. So we're quite optimistic. We do believe we'll have a record turnout in Massachusetts. We've already had, as you noted, almost 900,000 people cast ballots. That's about 18% of our electorate already, 19% almost. So it's quite enthusiastic. And I think all Americans want to vindicate the process of voting. This is something that we've held up high throughout our history, and it's important now.
All right. Well, Secretary Galvin, or Dr. Ashton was nodding her head to hear you say about the safety measures you have in place in some of the polling places. So thank you so much for the time. I know it's a busy time for you all, so we appreciate you, and good luck.
Yes. Great. Thank you.
And again, to our viewers, we keep reminding you about this, but this is a very useful and handy guide, some voter guidance specific to your state. You can go to How to Vote, that website from our partners at 538.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.